Okay, we're going to get started here with our final power panel, wrap-up panel of the day. We're talking today on this final power panel about the innovation that we're seeing from startups today, from new businesses. What problems are they solving in the market? How are they growing, and especially growing through making connections and partnerships with others in the ecosystem, whether they be straight distribution channels, whether they be others who kind of see the value of what they're doing and maybe sharing that value, investors, other types of partnerships, and then again, some hot tips for taking that innovation to adoption and really getting to the next stage. Love to ask each of my panelists to introduce themselves and their organizations. I'm going to start off with Christophe, who is the CEO of Telecom Design. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your organization.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Thank you for having me here. Telecom Design is a French company. We are a pure tech company. We are 25 years old, and we are actually delivering IoTs and solution devices to the field of home security and aging in place. Regarding aging in place, what we do is we are very famous for our algorithm that detects automatically the fault. So we provide wearables and the whole solution that enable a PERS company and service provider to operate properly. In the home security, what we do, we usually partner. You mentioned that before. I mean, it's our customer, but it's more a partnership. We partner with the leading monitored alarm service provider to actually have an advance or to stay ahead of their competition with really disruptive tech. We are very, very well known in Europe for what we call anti-jamming. You know that in an alarm systems, everything relies on Wi-Fi, RF communications, and today we may have a loophole here where we can have the possibility actually to transmit information through new networks. So that's what we do, and thanks to our customers, we are now global. We are in Asia, we are in Europe, we are in Latin, and now it's been a year and a half that we are in the United States to bring these disruptive innovations.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. We also have Chase Davis, who's a solutions engineering leader with Arity. Tell us a little bit about yourself and Arity.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Arity is a mobility and data analytics company that was born out of the Allstate Corporation. We analyze trillions of miles on first-party driving data to help better understand risk and behaviors of the drivers on the road, and we do it better than anyone else in the market. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is a mobility company here at a smart home discussion? And that's because smart homes have done a wonderful job of transforming the way we live our lives and protecting us when we're in the house. However, when we look at risk, most of the risk in our life happens when we're actually outside of those four walls and we're going about our day-to-day life. And so when we're traveling on the road, all of those moments introduce a new opportunity for risk or accidents or things to take place. And so with Arity, what we do is we turn mobile devices into an extension of the home, allowing for a new protection for things like crash detection, family monitoring, understanding where your loved ones are traveling, understanding when your kids or elderly may have arrived at a place safely. So with this, Arity actually helps monitor and protect over 50 million Americans today through our technology on their mobile devices. And second, one thing that's really cool in addition to the safety is the ability to help automate some of the things that have to do with smart homes, all of the devices that we have in our house. So lights, garage doors, security systems. When we're on the go, whether we're arriving at home or whether we're leaving, how can we start to automate those things based on the behaviors that we have when we're traveling to and from? And I look forward to discussing that here in a little bit.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for being here, Chase. We also have Josh DeFrancis with LG Nova. Tell us a little bit about LG Nova. I'm sure everyone's familiar with LG, maybe not LG Nova. So tell us a little bit about where you work.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people are familiar with LG Electronics. You have maybe washer, dryer, or TVs. It's a really fantastic company. LG Nova is a Silicon Valley-based innovation arm for LG. and we are responsible for building out new AI companies for the enterprise. So we actually don't focus on hardware or manufacturing like a lot of the company. What we are looking is kind of what's the next frontier for LG, and we build out companies. And I run a venture studio there. So we have teams of entrepreneurs in residence, product engineering, and we build out, we have a pipeline and we build out companies, and each year we spin out a couple. And then we have a captive fund that invests in it. And we work across consumer, enterprise, health tech, clean tech, but everything has an AI focus. And so there are a number of things, especially in the health tech front, consumer, that are quite relevant to the home and this space. And we actually are in Santa Clara. I didn't realize you were going to be out there for the conference, but it's great.
Yep.
We're kind of right down the street. So
okay,
fantastic.
so you'll be there. Yes. Okay. You'll be invited.
Definitely.
For sure.
Absolutely. I'll absolutely be there. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Josh, for being here. And we loved hearing about all of the different, really, technology spaces that you guys play in, right? This panel is broadened our view even beyond smart home. Everybody here at CES is innovating in some way. And so, kind of welcome your points of view kind of from across the sectors that you work in. We also have Joe McNulty, the SVP of Product with Whisker Labs.
Best for last. I love it. No offense, fellas. Joe McNulty. I run product at Whisker Labs. I'm in my 7th year there. Whisker Labs, most people don't know about. We're based out of Maryland. What people do know is the sole product that we have is Ting, T-I-N-G. Ting helps prevent electrical fires in homes. And in fact, our goal is to be in every structure in the world. Today, we are based out in the US. Our distribution is largely focused in the US. We have plans to go international, though. We are in about 1.3 million homes today. We ship about 50,000 of these every month. Every day, about 1,200 or 1,500 new homes turn up the service. It's a very simple product to prevent electrical fires. We are all about prevention. And so, by extension, we work with insurance companies to help reduce risk in homes. But we also, with that many sensors out there, have a very clear view of the electrical grid in the US and probably know more about the grid than utilities do in a lot of ways. So we kind of fill in the holes and gaps that they have in information. So it's basically data for good as well. So we're extending that goodness of Ting, preventing fires in homes. And again, people think about fires in homes when it comes to infrastructure, whether it's wires in the walls or plugs or lights that are hardwired, but it's everything you bring to the home, everything you plug in, chargers, laptops, dehumidifiers, which was the reason why we started the company, because there was a fire in one of our CEO's family home that burnt down the home. It was a dehumidifier, so he said, let's solve this problem. And also there's issues inside the home. You could have a fire inside the home from a utility fault outside the home. So we detect those as well. So we're excited to be here and have a discussion with everyone here.
Fantastic. So what's great is not only the diversity of kind of where you guys, what problems you guys are focused on, but also sort of startup that's now grown, company that's maybe smaller in the US, but big footprint in Europe, a smaller brand within a larger company. So everybody kind of has a different mode of operating here. I'd love to focus first on how, when we think about the kind of world of tech and from the startup, or innovation point of view, the way that they think differently and challenge some assumptions and kind of focus on new problems that maybe if you've been in the smart home space, for instance, for 10 years, we're hopefully solving slightly different problems today and different challenges than we were 10 years ago. So I'd love to start off by talking maybe to Chase and Christophe to start telling us about, what consumer industry pain points are really inspiring the innovation that you're seeing on the market today. And you talked a little bit about it, Chase, as you were saying, kind of why are we here and what are we focusing on? But, what fundamentally are you trying to solve here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to commend the smart home industry for what you've done inside the house. It is incredible the level of protection and the safety that we feel when we're home. As a side note, I think I'm actually the perfect candidate for this industry. When I was tallying up smart devices in my house, I have a smart alarm, a smart garage, a smart doorbell. I have all the plugs, I have all the lights, you name it. I even have the Apple Watch and the Oura Ring. I have so many different connected devices, and it's wonderful because it provides that level of protection. And it's wonderful that while I'm here in Las Vegas, I'm able to help my wife back home as well protect our house. However, I think one of the pain points, one of the gaps that we've started to notice is that, what about when I leave the house? Where is that layer of protection that extends beyond the front door? And how can we continue to engage with those consumers in a new way to become a part of their daily life when they're on the road? And that is where Arity is leaning in and helping with the things that I mentioned earlier, like crash detection, being able to automatically alert emergency services if there's an accident on the road. Help be able to monitor different family members as they come and go and be able to watch over their location as well. So when we envision the pain points of this industry, the home is really well done and really well connected. But how can we start to look at the next phase of smart homes and continue to build that protection beyond the house and now into the vehicle?
Yeah, and I'll say that, you know, our data does connect the out-of-home to the in-home, and I do think that consumers are thinking this way, where traditionally the security industry was very focused on the four walls and really detecting intrusion, and then the cameras have really extended the perimeter of the home to outside, and some of the very top things that consumers tell us they want to add on to their security package is vehicle monitoring and personal safety that you wear with you, that you take with you, right? So consumers are expanding outside the home, so great to see you guys focusing on that. Christophe, you mentioned both sort of the jamming tech and addressing vulnerabilities, right, on the security side, and then also on the aging, you know, tech. What are you seeing as you know, really innovative there, and kind of why are you guys focusing on those problems to solve?
Well, let's start with what you just mentioned, the security when you're starting to be a little bit away of your home.
Yeah.
You can add as much and as many tech that you want, cameras, sensors, whatever you want. But at the end of the day, there is a gateway somewhere, a central unit, that is actually taking the information of what's happening in the different sensors. But what's happening if there is no more communication between the sensor to the central unit, between the camera and the central unit, between the central unit to the call center? What's happening there? I brought something. I'll show you that. Do you know what it is? This is a jammer. This is the latest version of the portable jammer. Totally illegal. Totally illegal.
Security.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
That one is an arm, so it's okay. But look at that. If I am switching on this machine, this is the new weapon of the burglar today. This is deactivating 2G, 3G, GSM, 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi, RF, large band, narrow band. So nothing is working. I'm ruining this session right now if I'm switching it on. Nothing will work anymore. So we can have the best wireless solutions with everything that is connected, but if the communication, the basics, is not working anymore, you're dead. The problem is, this is a worldwide problem with all smart home security solutions that are now deployed. They are all wireless, and I am as well a customer of a famous company that is monitoring my home, and when I'm switching this on, nothing is working. So literally I'm paying 50 euros a month for nothing if the robber had that. But the problem, the burglar today, we are talking about burglar 3.0. This is what they have. And the vast majority of the industry is aware of that. So this is where there is a huge opportunity on how we can actually use new tech, new devices with specific components to actually still have the capability to have the information of the window just opened. It's not supposed to work. But even though the alarm doesn't go off, even though that nothing is happening, but we need to have the call center of ADT, of Verisure, of Vivint, whatever we want, they need to get this information. Even this is being used. And you can trust me, this is being used everywhere in every country today. You can buy that in 2 clicks on Amazon, on eBay, everywhere. It's illegal in Europe, in the US. So that's a big opportunity for this industry on which we're working now. On the other market, PERS, aging well. That's a really interesting market. I see a big difference between Europe and the United States. Aging in place. Amazon mentioned it a lot in the previous sessions. I mean, we talk about our beloved elderly to have them a maximum of time staying at home to aging well. I mean, which means that it's not about providing a solution with a SOS button. I mean, once you have the SOS, it means that you fall. This is the end of the game. Usually you're never coming back home if you're 80 or 85 years old. So what you need to provide in this field as a tech provider is a solution that may detect things in advance, using the steps, using the activity, to have some preventive approach that some KPIs can be shared with service providers that, oh, maybe we need to look at something. We need to make an intervention before the fall. We also need to give some inputs, some information to the elderly person to have a minimum of activity. If you're sitting down on your chair, but then your legs are less and less good to walk. So that's the whole idea of what's happening in the device industry, in this wearable and this algorithm. We can bring here, there is a huge opportunity here in the US to actually take care better of the elderly people and not only just look at something that when it's happening, that this is the end already.
Yeah, absolutely. That proactivity is this huge shift
Absolutely.
that the PERS industry is trying to move from reactive. Something fell, and so now I have to address it, to getting ahead of it, which is very similar to Ting, right? Taking something that, okay, now I've had a fire, I have to react to it. That's to right. You know, being proactive. Joe, one thing I was going to kind of ask you to think about when we think about how, again, putting our startup hat on really challenges assumptions. What do you see innovators doing today in learning or understanding, maybe even about where the consumer is at and user experience is at, that sometimes the larger companies, the more established companies miss?
Yeah, and I would probably not limit it to larger companies. I think that's unfair in a lot of cases. There's some large companies that do a really good job. I will say, and this also plagues startups. When it comes down to, people talk about failing fast, finding that one outcome or use case that you're going to kind of rally around. But when it comes to all of that, it's understanding the user, being close to the user, and understanding that going in. So a lot of times technology firms will actually, the teams will take this is really neat, this solves this problem, let's go ahead and deploy this, let's go ahead and try this out. Not understanding what's important to the customer. And for us, what we've learned along the way is keeping things simple is number one, right? You can imagine trying to detect electrical hazards in homes before they cause a fire across the entire home from one sensor and an outlet. There's a ton of complexity in there. You boil it down to something incredibly simple that everybody can put into a home. It doesn't matter where you are, you can actually use this device. But you're taking that as well. It's not about the features in the app. It's not about that sensor. It's a really cool sensor. It fades away in the background, right? You're taking all that complexity, and it's easy to talk about, right? And you pull it down into a very simple user experience, but it goes beyond that. It's focused on the outcome, right? The outcome is basically, I feel safer now, and I didn't have a lot of cognitive load. I didn't have to answer all these alerts. I didn't have to go through this entire process looking at my app and doing other things and trying to figure something out. It goes back to the experience you talked about with your parents having Ting, right? Where, you know, our team guides through and makes sure we keep it simple for everybody, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, my parents recently had a Ting experience. I was telling Joe beforehand, but detected an issue behind one of their outlets and spent hours.
How recent was that?
Within the past 4 months. Maybe?
Okay, they were close. We just passed 25,000 homes saved, so that's great to be part of that statistics.
Awesome.
Yeah, great.
And I mean, really walk them through every step and make sure they were
Perfect.
handheld. So very great example of taking somebody who isn't very tech savvy. They trusted in you guys, actually were alerted when it was meaningful, right? And then knew how to walk them through. That's great. And Josh, so another thing that startups sometimes do is really challenge some entrenched assumptions or legacy business models and think through how things could be different. And the many different organizations that you guys are working with, and I mean, like you said, clean tech, health tech, right? Where are you seeing some exciting kind of challenges to legacy business models that maybe startups are challenging or breaking apart or doing something different?
Yeah, it's been really interesting over the last couple of years. We work with, we build our own companies, but we also work with a lot of startups, and so we see both sides. But with especially in the last year, the adoption of AI, we used to seeing there's certain metrics at funding stages that we see. So Series A, what does Series B look like, seed, and we're seeing companies that are really diving in and being much more operationally efficient. Using AI as an accelerator, and they look very different. Like there's companies that are generating significant revenue with, like many, many millions with 5 people. And it's really interesting to see, and also challenges us a bit as we build our own companies. And I sit on the funding side too. What do those companies need to look like to compete? So that's one. I think that's been really interesting. I also spend a lot of time in healthcare. It's one of our focus areas, especially health in the home is part of that. And my background's healthcare. And in the past, there was a lot like health tech was kind of separate from consumer tech.
Sure.
And health tech seemed very medical.
Yes.
And we're really seeing the convergence, and it's honestly kind of quite overlapping now. Like I wear a Whoop, there's the Oura Ring, there's aging in place technology. A lot of it is just in the background, and it's really consumer and health tech. And so we're seeing that move in health tech away from being very medical in the home to just ambient in the background, and that's really interesting as well, and that's changing that industry.
So I wanted to talk about kind of the value, how you express value to more established ecosystem players. So let's talk about health, specifically, because that definitely has been kind of a bright line in the past. Well, are you going to go through the FDA regulation? Are you going to go through the regulatory path to be able to play in the medical ecosystem, or stay over here in wellness? And so can you share anything on the health tech side about how open some of the, whether it be insurers or systems or payers, right, different ecosystem players in health tech, and how willing they are to work with various startups today?
Yeah, I think very willing.
Okay.
I think it really comes down to outcomes and value. And when I was in health tech, there were a lot of startups popping up, and they were charging PMPM, like per member per month, and for either insurers or self-insured employers, and there's a lot of pressure on these companies to just do outcomes-based, value-based pricing.
Yeah.
So I think they're very open, but they're putting more of the onus on the startups to really kind of put a stake in the ground and be at risk for what they're saying they will do, rather than just like a per member per month. But yeah, big companies I think are very open. There are kind of obviously separate regulatory paths, and some companies try to totally skirt that. I think eventually they have to come around and they have to publish and go that route still. I think there's a pretty high bar for some of the health tech companies. But yeah, I think it's going in a good direction.
Okay, how about on the clean tech side? So now we're talking maybe utilities being in the game, or other energy ecosystem players. Where do you see in the energy space some of the possibilities for partnership success in the clean tech companies you're working with?
I think they're open as well. Those customers, as we look at it, utilities, energy companies, they often move more slowly and are a little more old school, and so I think sometimes it can be a harder path forward. So we see on the clean tech side, it's hard to break in. However, there is an appetite, especially energy companies and utilities, with all the data center and grid challenges. They have to be open because they don't have solutions, and so it's a bit of both. They're open, but it still moves a bit slowly and can be challenging.
The utility timeline we've heard for a long time, but you're right. There's a little more gas behind the accelerator, or maybe electric driver, not gas.
Absolutely.
Behind the accelerator today. Yeah. Okay, so let's stick with the ecosystem players, because I want to talk about insurers, right? So now we've got insurers, folks in the connected home space and connected consumer space have been waiting for you insurers to step in and really see the value, and they're by nature conservative, risk averse, right? Having to see the data models play out. So how willing are insurers to get in behind, certainly, we'll come to Joe in a second to really talk about maybe your path there and how you've made that work. But Chase, to talk about, what insurers need to understand, whether a specific new innovation is really kind of worth investing in or trialing. We hear a lot from water detection around floods, fire detection, smoke detection around fire. Of course, security around intrusion detection. They're usually those losses aren't as substantial, right? So can you give us a sense of the kind of insurance frame of mind and working with new players right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So when Arity partners with insurance companies, and I mentioned we were spun out of the Allstate Corporation, Arity itself is not an insurance company, but of course we do know one very well. That being said, as we look at the carrier market, one of the main places that Arity's working more closely with them is in that driving space. So now looking at, hey, what does their driving risk profile look like? Are they speeding? Are they braking? You know, are there accidents? You know, what is going on inside the car that attributes to that risk? And then of course those auto premiums. Now also when we talk to smart home providers as well, and as we look to bundle these offerings and look to, again, extend that protection from the house to the car, you're exactly right. We're starting to hear more about carriers interested in those water sensors, those smoke detectors, those fire detectors, you know, even down to the garage door opener. You know, as we heard in a previous session, you know, one of your biggest assets sits there in the garage. And so they're looking to get more involved in that space. They are a little more risk adverse, but they're starting to come around and they're more interested as this ecosystem really starts to expand and really starts to grow. I don't think it's going to be too long before we start to see that pretty commonplace.
It's interesting that you mentioned kind of bundles. Do you see more place for technology to play in either bundling policies together like home and car, right? Or bundling solutions to make some interesting policies happen, like you know, free water detectors and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both, right? I mean, bundling home and auto is pretty commonplace, that's natural.
Yeah.
But bundling in those sensors, bundling in that driving data, understanding, hey, an alarm triggered, but we can also, since we're monitoring their drives, we can also see they're not home. We know they left, or we know someone's on the way home. So when you start to bring all of these sensors together and all of this information into one, then those are the conversations that we're starting to have where they're looking, going, hey, wait a second, okay, we can protect the person, their car, their house, and understand all of the dots. I think that's exactly what's coming.
Okay, all right, great. Joe, maybe you can talk us through actually your journey in working with insurers and how many insurers you're working with, you know, and how that path maybe looks like and what learnings we can share.
Yeah, that's probably one of the questions I get the most, increasingly so. And we're close to 40 partnerships today, and we keep expanding the existing ones that we have. I will say that when I first came into the business, we were looking at insurance as a channel. We were also looking to direct to consumer and others, but it was early days, and it just felt right to have this for insurers. Now, at the time, this is late 2018, the insurance industry had gone through kind of I'll call the first wave of IoT smart home, and a lot of it was based on water. And the challenge there, it gets back to what we were talking about before, is about outcomes and understanding that, but also how to market to consumers and get them to take action. You can send sensors to them, right, and get them to try and install them, but then you lose visibility into that, or maybe they don't install it because maybe it's free and then it feels like it's not valuable, that type of thing. So you get all of that dynamic there, but kind of cracking that code is you have to have aligned goals with them, right? So for us, every home stays connected, stays monitored by Ting, is a home that is safer and that, you know, attributes to their ROI. So it's really, you know, they're very conservative, they're slow to move, not as slow as utilities. No offense to anybody's utilities in the room, right? But because we work with both of them, I would say for insurance, they're very passionate when it comes to these kinds of technologies, and sometimes you have to meet them where they are, right? So doing brand marketing, you know, Jake and Eli and, you know, all the, not Eli, Peyton, you know, doing all these commercials with insurers, but marketing to consumers to actually take action, take this device, because I'm going to help you. Sometimes it's a trust issue there and things. So you have to meet them where they are. So when we started, we were very much just a technology company. But we have built a very, very large, both business to business and B2C marketing arm. I ran marketing for 5 years at the company and recently jettisoned that to a fantastic team, and now I'm focused on product. But for the insurers, I think it boils down to the number one thing when you look through everything you're trying to do in the program with an insurer, it boils down to one thing. It's the lawyers, right, and the folks protecting the brand have to get through all that stuff, right? So you have to collaborate with them, meet them where they are, and make sure that everybody understands what we're looking at, what's important, what's not, right? And they are very protective of the brand, unlike any other large company. For startups, brand's not as important. It's not that big of a risk surface, right? In some cases, I can always change the name, right? But they're very protective of the brand, and we're very sensitive to that. So, and it shows in the outcomes that we have with insurers. So when Ting shows up on a doorstep for a State Farm or for a Nationwide or for an Allstate, it shows up as it's a Ting bubble pack. It's black and it has our box on it, a picture of our box, but it has the insurer's logo on there, printed on there, alongside of us. That's high trust, and it also goes into our app, but that wasn't built in a day, right?
Yeah.
So working with insurers, it's a tough slog. But you have to prove that it comes down to protecting their brand and having an ROI, right? They're not going to do anything. And sometimes with devices, it can be very expensive. So you have to make sure the ROI works. So.
Well, and that really does speak their language, just to come to a potential partnership with an insurer and say, we're not going to do anything that's going to put your brand at risk, and we understand that. And start there and talk that language. That's great advice. Christophe, I'd love to hear about maybe some of the common mistakes you see or learnings that you've had in working with some of the bigger other players, like you're working with large security organizations, for instance, in Europe, and what you can share there as far as maybe some common mistakes people make in pitching what they have that, to some of these larger organizations that they want to work with.
And this is a truly funny question, because I've been actually working for 16 years in super large groups with big responsibilities, and all of a sudden I chose to take the responsibility of a way smaller company compared to the giants, multi-billion euro company. So what I can say, and it's a true story, you think you're big, but you're not when you are the startup or the smaller company. Because you are going to deal with, you provide a tech. That is a fantastic tech. The engineers of the giant company are happy. But someone will say, I have 1,000 engineers. Why this is coming from another company first? But they talk the same language, so it works. But then do you have the legals? Then you have the procurement. Procurement told me, you think you're big, but you're not. So the true story is I was with the equivalent of Arity in Europe and say, look, I have a fantastic new algorithm. That is actually for dealing with fall detection with a new wearable. And I said, look, this now, we are really on the edge, and we are so optimized, we optimize it's such optimized that actually today you are going to save certainly, I don't know, 1 million euro a year in terms of cost on your call center, because the number of true faults are going to be lowered by far. And say, no, that's too much. It's impossible. It's impossible. And I say, look, no, you can talk to your engineers. You can talk to engineers. They are going to tell you that. So the main key things here is it's really good as a tech company, as a startup, to actually have the engineers understanding your tech, and they talk the same language. It works, but you need absolutely to continue having this proactive approach, collaboration, things with all the other teams. To let them thinking that actually they are also a little bit part of the idea, and that they are also within the company being very proud of choosing us as well to continue the business, because actually your impact will be very big. As a small company, you know that your tech is fantastic because you care about this, but the big company is caring about tons of other things. So that's the main thing that is happening, and it was pretty brutal for the first time, because I was used to being in that kind of big companies, and when you switch, then you need to think a little bit differently and consider everyone as a collaborative approach.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really interesting. Turning the engineering team into internal influencers, right? And influencing those decision makers. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I'd love to hear, Josh, from you, when you're working with some of these organizations that you're supporting through LG Nova, what do you see as when they're going through like pilot results and the data that they're gathering, what gives investors confidence that what they have is real, that they're going to make their money back, that they can take something to a larger deployment, right? What are you hoping to see from the startups that they can prove they can get to the next place?
Yeah, it's really, not about the technology often. Like people try to really dive deep, and technology can be really exciting, but it's more about what problem are you solving, or what ROI are you creating, and that's what we want to see. It can be the greatest tech in the world, but maybe it's not really solving an exciting problem. So we really, was there something very difficult that was a pain point before that is going to be much easier, streamlined? Is there clear ROI? Does it seamlessly integrate into kind of operational workflow? Does it become habitual for consumers? Like that's the kind of stuff that we want to see. And it's hard early, but
Right.
really, it needs to be, they need to be solving a clear problem, or saving money, or creating new revenue opportunities.
Okay.
It can't just be about the tech.
Are there certain revenue models that you're looking for now? So for instance, there's got to be recurring services attached, or you've got to be able to have data that you're going to be able to sell into LLMs and make the money off the data, I mean, advertising path, obviously you talked about health tech a little bit, maybe that's off the table, but are there certain business models that you're gravitating to or coaching folks to go to be more investable and scale?
Yeah, for us, we don't do any hardware, which is interesting coming from LG. It's all recurring revenue
Right.
software platform.
Okay.
So we definitely are looking at that. But when I'm working with a startup beyond the revenue, it's, what is the outcome? In the health tech space, it's about what is the impact for aging in place? Are you preventing falls? Are you helping solve chronic conditions? Can you show measurable outcomes? More than a revenue model necessarily. I think many of them have hybrid approaches, but I care a lot more about the outcomes.
Okay, all right, great. We have a couple more minutes. There's two big questions I want to kind of wrap up with, and we'll go all the way down the line on these. So one is, I'd love to see what you guys think is the next frontier of disruption. So is it something like ambient intelligence, energy resilience, insurance aligned systems, privacy first design, people talking about really, differentiating on being the trusted provider and, local storage and privacy, health tech, or something else? Where do you see the next real frontier of disruption coming from? And Josh, I'll start with you on this one. And then
on the health tech side, I'm really excited about the convergence, the consumer angle. I feel like for a long time, we saw challenges. Like there were a lot of aging in place companies that just didn't really make it. There were consumer companies that struggled, and it's really, I think, kind of hit that pivotal point where there's a shift. And I'm seeing an explosion. I'm really excited about that.
Super exciting. Chase?
I think privacy and transparency is always top of mind, but as it relates to Arity, I think mobility data is going to be an interesting space in smart homes. And a quick 2 seconds on mobility data. We're all aware of what location data is. It's GPS pings. It's a point, it's a place in time. We know where someone is. Mobility data takes that a step further, and it analyzes their historical patterns and helps predict future outcomes. So what routes are they taking? When do they normally leave? When do they normally stay somewhere? Where are they going to be throughout their journey? And as we tie all of those pieces together, again, back to the smart home, that's where I think we're going to be able to start to create new, customizable, personalized experiences for those consumers. So adding that additional layer of protection, again, outside the house and through every step of their path.
Okay, awesome. Joe, where's disruption coming from?
So my answer is twofold. One is from our perspective, from electrification, right? You heard earlier today about California from PG&E, how the gas water heater is going away, that type of thing. So everything's being electrified today. So bigger risks to the grid, but actually having that technology to say where are those blind spots that we can help with, right? Not just from a load management perspective of where can utilities invest in. And so having that safety aspect, we can electrify all we want, power walls and everything else in, but at the end of the day, where are the faults happening, right? And so having that layer in there to make sure that everything's okie dokie, right? I would say that, from our distribution on the faults that we see, new homes are not, they do have faults and from the moment they move in, right? The electrician could do a bad job. Maybe they brought a faulty device with them. The other aspect is I'm a biomedical engineer by training. I spent most of my career in healthcare before this, right? And other technologies that are close by. So I wear my whoop and everything. And I think the big disruption, home systems and everything, the electrical system, miles of wiring, everything else, pretty complex, right? Human body, right? Not even close. The complexity. So I think the breakthroughs are going to be there, and there's going to be some taking the technologies we talked about here today and others will apply into that space, right? Electrical sensing, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Christophe, for you, big disruptions.
From our perspective, this is all related to aging in place. From a pure demographic perspective, we are going to have more and more seniors on this earth. And actually, when you get retired, you're starting to be a senior, but you are an active senior. At 60, 64, you are running, you're skiing, you're doing a lot of things. But actually, aging well, it's an adaptation of solution at home between that age to hopefully 90 and more. So today, this is not treated the right way. Because what you want actually to properly age well at your home, that you need to have access to a lot of services. Kind of concierge, maybe you want to keep your house with your garden, but you don't have enough mood or capabilities, so you need to have a gardener. When you are doing shopping, maybe you are going to ask someone to do that for you, and maybe they are going to steal a little bit of money. So you need to have that kind of services that need to be actually merged into a hub, a transmitter, whatever, on top of all the additional security that we can bring based on Wi-Fi sensing, based on a wearable and things like that, that actually push you to move. Because if you move, you are active. If you are active, but you are going to age well in place at the end of the day.
That activity, absolutely. Well, we, just to wrap up here, we actually surveyed executives in consumer IoT in 2025 and asked, where's the growth today and where's the potential in 2028? So if we could bring up this last slide here. Very much in line with what you guys are saying, 2028 market potential, home energy management, senior tech and active aging, intelligence and insurance related tech. So you guys are all focused in very similar areas. Thank you all so much, and please thank our speakers for their insights today.
Thank you.
And just a few quick words of closing. Thank you so much to our sponsors, and we invite you all to follow the conversation throughout the year with Parks Associates analyst sessions, which is a benefit to our research members. So if you have any interest or questions about that, please talk to me or any of the Parks team. And then we welcome you all to the networking reception. You can follow our team or grab a little map and we'll see you over there. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.